Peace, everybody. Introduction. This is the Muslim Corn Palace, 1890 Sioux City Corn Palace, the fourth palace. It is the fourth. This is just one of the pictures of four different ones. This was one of the four corn palaces. The images is the fourth corn palace in Sioux City, Iowa, Hawa, also Ioja. The architect is Gothic, which is a Moorish Tartarian mode of craftsmanship, according to a dictionary of the architectural and archaeology of the Middle Ages by John Britton. The amazing thing about this palace is that it had electricity, free energy, and it was made with corn. So we're dealing with a very advanced nation of people, of course, the Tartarian Moors, Sioux, Ogala Agala, Ogala Allah Sioux, serpent dragon of the Moors, M-U-U-R-S, here, according to the architecture. They even had railways that ran under the corn palace. So this was definitely a commercial building used for harvesting corn, hence the name Corn Palace. And these kinds of structures prove that we had Moors here in America. And they once ran the corn industry also. So this is very important, giving the information we're going to respond to. So the video we're responding to is titled Kong Resurgence, Arch, A-R-C-H, of Hanuman, H-A-N-U-M-A-N, Planet of the Apes, Guerrilla Galactic War. And you can find that title of the video on the channel of Fleur Brun, or Brun, F-L-E-U-R-B-R-U-N. The video is like 4 hours long. So start at the 19-minute mark. So Fleur Brun, the beautiful sister who has the guest on, makes a comment about ancient structures in the Americas, and she rightfully and correctly and factually and topographically and the whole nine and mathematically accredits the Moors with the credit of building these ancient structures all over the Americas and even the world. Immediately after she said that, the guest says to her, well, that's who we've been fighting for 400 years. So he references that he was fighting the architecture and the structures of Moorish Tartaria, which was also known as heaven on earth. Free electricity, free energy, healing centers, gigantic trees, gigantic vegetables. Even we were bigger during the time. Basically, healing centers all over every earth plane, purified water, air travel by zeppelins and ships. We'll show you some of those too, all under Moorish Tartaria. But this is who he says that he has been fighting for 400 years. And he continues to go on after that to use the word dirty Moors. Dirty Moors, a word that we've been hearing often that seems to be going viral now. So we're going to handle the information that was covered. We're going to respond to a lot of it in this presentation. I do want to show you some other corn palaces real quick before I get into the slickness and the wordplay of this gentleman that we often hear using the word dirty Moor. Here's another corn palace, and this is also in the Americas. This is in the Midwest. You see the teepee over here on the corn palace, and you see the certain plants that only grow here in the Americas, and of course the bird. And you do see the wolf here, which my clan is the Wolf Clan, the Anyawea. That is another corn palace. If you just type in corn palaces in America, even use the word Moorish, you're going to see lots of them pop up. And remember, they told you that that was the fourth. Here's another one. All here in the Americas under Moorish Tartaria. People want to try and say the Moors are foreigners and invaders and assisted the Europeans in overthrowing the indigenous populations of the Americas. We're going to get into that today. And in the follow-up video, I'm going to bring on a gentleman who is familiar with the treaties and a little bit more of the history of the tribes and the inside job that occurred in selling out the bloodline of the people who established heaven on earth, also known as Moorish Tartaria. They were sold out. They had infiltrators and traitors. So we're going to hold this picture here. So let me continue with something while you're looking at the picture of the Moorish Corn Palace. This is Moorish Palace. Oh, let me show you the one in, let me show you the one, where's the one in Chicago? The World's Fair. Let's see if I could, maybe I'll pull that one up for you later. Let's go back to this one here. So, Dirty Moors. The term Dirty Moor was coined by a Moor, Noble Drew Ali. Peace to Noble Drew Ali. It'll be his birthday tomorrow, which is another reason why I'm responding to the insanity that's been spoken about him and a lot of Moors who are trying to do the right thing. There's bad people in every organization, every institution, but there's a lot of good people as well. So, Dirty Moors. So the term Dirty Moor was coined by Noble Drew Ali for Moors to describe other Moors that knew they were doing the wrong thing. Not that were deceived or tricked or unaware, but the ones that knew they were participating in the wrong things or doing the wrong things. Don't call them Negroes or blacks or coloreds. Call them Dirty Moors. This was something that Moors were to do to other Moors. So why is it that I hear this gentleman using this word Dirty Moor just about every time I see a video that he's doing? And a few others too. Let me give an example of something. In the Jewish community, they often call each other dirty Jews. Or they would say, hey, that's a dirty Jew. But that's what they do in their community. Being outside of their community, I would never do that. I would just say, hey, that gentleman is no good. Or that woman is no good. Same with the Italians. They kind of joke around and call each other guineas and wops. But see, that I don't do that because I'm not in that community. That's not my culture. It's not my circle. I would just say that gentleman he ain't shit or he's no good. It's the same in our culture, in our community. We have this thing where we call each other niggas, right? Man, that nigga getting on my nerve. Or you'll say, man, that's my nigga. So we do it out of admiration or either out of disdain. We even call things niggas, like car won't start. Man, this nigga ain't gonna start. Man, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this nigga. We use it various ways, but that's what we do in our communities. Someone outside of your circle, if they do it, say like an Asian calls you a nigga or a so-called white person calls you a nigga, now that's a fight. So the question I have is for someone who tends to always talk negative, the majority about Moors. If he says something good, you can bet in a few seconds later he's going to say something bad and he's going to say dirty Moors. So someone that has so much discontent, disdain, dislike, animosity, whatever you want to call it, for Moors, but you don't call yourself one, why would you always use that word? It's slick. It's wordplay, and it's a trick. Because even Moors let it slide because they hear him saying dirty Moor. Well, he's not talking about the good ones. Well, in this video, the one I mentioned, Kong Resurgence, the beautiful sister Flora Braun, very beautiful spirit, she made a very good statement about something that the Moors were doing that was wonderful and awesome. And he said, that's who we've been fighting for 400 years. And he went on to use the word dirty Moors throughout the 4-hour video. The slickness of wordplay, the slyness, the sneakiness. So I've never heard this brother say dirty Indian. This is 1893 Chicago World's Fair Moorish Palace. Halligan print, origin, 1893 Chicago World's Fair, Moorish Palace, Moorish Tartaria. So once again, we never hear the brother use dirty like in reference to dirty Italians, dirty niggas, dirty Mexicans, dirty Jews, dirty Muslims, dirty Catholics, dirty Puerto Ricans. The only time I hear him say the word dirty is dirty Moors. So that's very, very interesting that we never really hear him use dirty, but in reference to Moors. He claimed to be a psychic also. So a psychic is a person who claims to use powers rooted in parapsychology, such as extrasensory perception, to identify information hidden from the normal senses, particularly involving telepathy or clairvoyance, or who performs acts that are apparently inexplicable by natural laws, such as psychokinesis or teleportation. But the fact of the matter is, true psychics operate at sunrise, high noon, afternoon, or when the sun is at its highest. Sunset, campfires, candlelit rooms, light is required. They are direct, personal, and brief. And then there's the channeling, which channeling refers to a practice of entering a meditative or trance-like state to convey messages from a spiritual guide or entity. It can also mean directing energy or information along a specific pathway or focus. Channeling as a channel. Open frequency. Any entity or bad spirit can ride in and often will, such as like a TV channel. And then when the old TVs, you had to change the channel because you got distortions from bad signals. So basically, we don't really want to channel anything. Channeling is not something that the autochthonous nations, the chief seers, fire walkers, oracles, the adept, which is a chamber within the Moorish Science Temple. You don't channel anything. You meditate, you listen, and the information comes. You're not channeling anything. If it doesn't come, you don't speak. Psychic is not going to speak to you for 4 fucking hours. It's usually very brief and direct and personal. I do want to say that this gentleman tends to call Moors foreigners and traitors in the whole nine. No one was calling Moors traitors before Facebook. You go back and you look years ago and pull up information on Moors. You didn't see any of that. This is something that started online circles, and it continues to this day. It was combated then. There was a lot of information Moors were putting up. They were putting up a lot of good information, research, documentation, lawful information, historical maps, ancient names of the Americas. Moors were putting this stuff up. Always have been. And then some things were done on Facebook to go at the Moors. There was pages put up to say that Moor is not a nationality, Moor is this, and of course that was handled fairly quickly. And then of course when YouTube arose, going even back then, Moors were putting up a lot of good information on YouTube, and then once again, in came the hate and discontent Moor's not this, Moor's not real, Moor's not a nationality. And eventually, with the House of Consciousness and Brother Sinetta, when they decided to get together and do their thing and present aspects of the conscious community doing debates against each other, the Moors prevailed again. It was a final blow. It was Sharif Bey and Dr. Reggie, who Dr. Reggie's not even a doctor, but first round knockout. The Moors have never collectively, as an organization, institution, or group, targeted or went after other individuals and other groups. Now you have bad apples in every organization, every institution, every society. But overall, Moors have always been on the defense when it comes to others putting out information, false information, and it's always been proved to be that. And we will prove it again at the very end of this production. On the eve of Noble Drew Ali's birthday, the gentleman also made some derogatory comments about Noble Drew Ali. So we're going to handle those too, as well as him making comments about Moors and trying to make it look like he's talking about dirty Moors, but he was talking about the ones who did these things. Heaven on earth, which really are the good Moors. So here we go again. Let me give you the meaning of some names next. That's the next clip. Definitions here of some things. We're going to first deal with what's called a haze. A haze. In the realm of fictional magic, spells that induce a hazy, disoriented state could include mist of confusion, fog of forgetfulness, dreamweaver, ethereal haze, veil of illusion, pollen of drowsiness, whispering wind, or slumbering cloud, depending on the specific magical system and desired effect. So we're given a definition of haze, or when one is placed in a haze. Spells that induce a hazy, disoriented state, mist of confusion, veil of illusion, slumbering cloud. So this has to do with the word haze, when someone is under a haze or been placed in a haze. Now we're going to deal with another one here. And excuse me if the focus goes in and out on my camera, but in fantasy settings, a rod is often used as a magical item that allows a spellcaster to cast spells by channeling energy through it. Didn't we hear that word, channeling? Channeling before. Brother says he channels information. Essentially acting as a conduit for magic instead of a traditional wand. A conduit instead of a traditional wand. The power of the rod itself determines the spell's effectiveness, not necessarily the caster's personal abilities. A rod is often used as a magical item. Allows the spellcaster to cast spells by channeling energy through it. Acting as a conduit for magic instead of a traditional wand. The power of the rod itself determines the spell's effectiveness, not necessarily the caster's personal abilities. Just some definition of haze and a rod that is used to cast spells. That's not to say that the caster doesn't have any information. They often are going to have some very pivotal information in certain areas, but in other areas they are a conduit. You read it yourself. These are several signs that someone might be deceptive, including body language, fidgeting or sudden distancing, all right? Repeating questions, speaking in fragments, or giving vague answers. Repeating the same story. Repeating the same story. Or failing to provide details when challenged. Or failing to provide details when challenged. I have asked several brothers to provide me information through direct communication and contact, and it was very simple and very short, and I've never gotten it. Never. Most of these people are the ones who are saying Moors are foreigners and they were invaders and that whole spiel. I requested information and they've never given it. Simple stuff. Question inflections. Deceptive people might try to avoid answering a question instead of lying outright. So they avoid certain questions. This is a real important one for this other person who is repeating this gentleman verbatim, and he's on Instagram. I'm not going to give you his Instagram page. I'm not going to give him any type of attention. He don't need no attention. He don't need any more than he's getting. But he has the word "onk" in his name. And he's attacking Moors, and he has the word "onk" in his name. So this is specifically for him. And he's also made some comments about Moors. Some very negative, very disrespectful, and blatant lies. I don't know why anyone would lie on someone. It's okay not to like people or organizations or institutions, but to purposely lie is that's some bullshit. I don't lie on my enemies. I just don't like them. I don't need to lie on them. I just don't like my enemies. But I don't need to lie on them. Anyway, grooming behaviors. Here it is right here. Playing with hair or pressing fingers to lips. Or pressing fingers to lips. He blows his finger uncontrollably, as if something is snatching his breath in the middle of a sentence, and he blows his finger. Not as we do with what's called the holy kiss, when you ball your fist up and you open up your palm and you extend your palm and you blow a kiss on your hand and you extend it with your fingers. Not that, but blowing on the finger uncontrollably, pressing fingers to lips. Signs of deceptiveness. We all know about the increase of sweating, muscle tensions, or relentlessness. The other thing is gut feelings. You might have a feeling that something is off or that the person isn't being upfront with you. And we need to learn to use our intuition a little bit better when we're listening to people and receiving information. Because one of the brothers, he looks deceptive. When you look at him, he looks deceptive, but he has a lot of good information. But he looks very, very sneaky. So these are things that we don't want to avoid. Now, researchers suggest that there's no simple way to detect if someone is lying, but these are just some things, several signs that someone might be deceptive. And there's a book you can get that's much better on it. And that book is called Dealing with Deception. It's called, subtitle is Be as Wise as Serpents and Gentle as Doves. That's a very good book to read, to be able to read people, to see if they're being deceptive to you or if they're lying. And we've caught all of these brothers in lies. and misinformation, and we've caught them contradicting themselves numerous times. So let me continue to this person that I want to answer another question that some people had for me on the chat in the room about him pressing his fingers to his lips. Another comment that was made by this individual was that he made a comment that the indigenous people in the Americas did not have fezzes here, that was something that was foreigners wore, that we didn't wear fezzes here. We wore feathers. That's what he said. And during the time he made the statement, he didn't have one fucking feather in his hair. Very interesting, huh? So here are some hidden history. The Fez and Kufi. People think the Kufis are from Africa. Kufis are indigenous to the Americas. But see, the thing with Africa, and this is to the person down in South America who thinks he can pick up a book that is a coded book that comes from a combination of maybe 77 other books. He thinks he can pick it up and read it and be able to convey to you what's in it. And he hasn't been through an adept chamber. He hasn't been through a seer, a sayer. He thinks he can just pick it up and read it. See, they say they're from Africa. See, this is their own book. South America was known as Africa at one point in time. I'll show you that map. It's called Ethiopia, Ethiops. But these are indigenous fezzes. The Fez and Kufi, just like many Moors, are Aboriginal indigenous to North America too. And these are fezzes or tarbooshes or halos, as they were properly called, a halo. And you can see the symbol of the beads represents the tassel. Most of these are going to be 6 to 9 inches long. There won't be any longer than 9 inches. Shouldn't be, really. 6 inches is a ruler. The fez, an original American headdress. There were some Shriners who tried to say that Abdul Hamed Soliman brought the fez to the Americas. See how they try and give other people credit for what the Moors have been doing? Usurpers. I have pictures of indigenous people. I probably have about 300 pictures of indigenous people with headdresses on that go back to circa mid-1800s, circa late 1700s. So you see here above are 3 vintage fezzes, below Kufi. Basket hats were carved and worn by American women and men during the 1800s. Originally they were made with natural dried grass straw and then adorned with hand painted designs. Take notes of the bead on the tassel. And this is survived traditional and brought forth through the cellular memory of our Aboriginal primogenitor American Al-Moroccan, that is the word Morhakan, which is the Mohicans. Al-Moroccan, that's another name for America. Al-Moroccan, Khan is the word priest. That's Moor priest. The American Al-Moroccan mothers to the hairstyle that women and young girls wear on their braids to this day. We always did what our ancestors did. And of course that fez also represents the high top fade. We'll get into that later. In place of foil that was used back in the day to secure beads onto hair, notice how a corn wire shell was used instead. These hairdresses sell for $700 to $900 in museum shops and auction houses. With such a price, it is probably best for us to start doing basket weaving so we can bring our ancestors' ancient art to the top of our minds, and it's war on your head. And you can see right here that kufi's made in North America. This is all made in North America. The kufi is not from overseas. Americas, North America, South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. This is to the clown that continues to take shots at the Moorish paradigm, and he throws around dirty Moors and makes up all kinds of, he's just making shit up sometimes. It's kind of hilarious. Here's also for the one in South America who thinks he knows so much about Moors. And here's a Wari tribe member. We're going to talk about them later, and you can see his halo similar to the fez and with his feathers coming out of the front. Some of the things that they say are just so hilarious. We can see that this, exactly what this represents with the two tall feathers in the front. And she has the parrot on her shoulder. Right? Indigenous Americas. Here's another one. You can see what that represents. The Powhatan were noted for wearing their headdresses and the feathers tucked up in the representation of the fez. Chief Powhatan, Wansanuka, Manta Oka, Amun. Here is another picture, an older picture from the 70s. Look up the Museum of Anthropology. Just look that up. American Indian smoking customs, and we can see that he has a fez on, which is a cherry top. And we will get to the meaning of the cherry top when we show you who the real traders are. And some of our future, well, we'll do it in the follow-up video to this one. We're going to get into the real traders, since these brothers want to continue to play these games and take shots and be very disrespectful to a group of brothers who are really just trying to do the right thing. There's good and bad seeds in every institution. I mentioned it before, but when we talk about the institutions right now that are the most deceptive and most deceiving, it's not the Moorish Science Temple. It is not the Nation of Islam. It is not the Hebrew Israelites. It's not your autochthonous or indigenous communities. Our most deceptive and most traitorous is the black church. Hands down. So, I want to remind you, the 19-minute mark of the video I referenced at the beginning, when the sister mentioned the Moors built those ancient buildings, and they are not dated, the brother quickly replied, "That's who we've been fighting for 400 years. Please remember this statement as we unveil who the true traders are." You see, there's no documentation of Moors fighting any indigenous tribes. No documentation, or even oral confirmations of Moors siding with foreign nations. The Moorish paradigm in the Americas and even other places makes a distinction, Moors as independent or in authority. But there is no documentation of tribes forming alliances with England. But there is documentation of tribes forming alliances with England to become independent of previous powers. Who were the previous powers they were trying to get away from or become independent of? We're going to look at the word Indian traders in the next video and break down exactly what that meant. They never told you what they were trading, because they were betraying people. And who did they betray? By definition, it couldn't have been foreigners. You can't betray a foreigner. It must have been bloodline or someone here in the Americas that they were betraying. So when you see the word Moors and Indian associates, eventually they made a distinction between the two. They were not claiming them all to be the same. One, the associates, we know that we're not Indians either. That was a term that was placed. The associates were the tribes breaking away from the empire to form alliances with foreigners. What this brother doesn't know is that, or maybe he does, I shouldn't say he doesn't know, is that a treaty is different from an alliance. But there are treaties that are drawn up, but it's really an alliance. It's not really a treaty. The Moors have treaties with a lot of other nations because they were at war with them. A lot of your indigenous nations, specifically your $5 Indians, and even going way back, they don't have treaties. Those are alliances, but they're just kind of drawn up to appear as a treaty. It's not a treaty. And how you know that is because the U.S. corporation will break that treaty anytime they get ready. And you're always seeing them go further and further into territories. You're always seeing people being deprived of things in these reservations in these areas because they don't have a treaty. It was an alliance. So in a way, we will be able to point out to you who sold who out, and we will show you exactly how and why, and you'll be able to tell. And just remember that this is in response to information people are putting out. Some very disrespectful shit. So we will continue.